Hey guys, I'm going to show you one way that you can do 3 of the graphic organizers that are in your pack. If you do them a different way, if you apply them to your book that you're reading and fill in your own answers, that's okay too. But I wanted to show you one way to apply these graphic organizers to the book, the read aloud book that the class has been doing, The Tale of Despereaux. So the first one that I'm looking at is this one. It says character consideration. So we're going to take one character and fill in some bubbles about that one character. And so I'm going to put my name on the top of the paper. Mrs. Hickson. And then I'm going to put in the title of the book that we're reading. Tale of Despereaux. The Tale of Despereaux. This is a play on words because mouses have tails, but Despereaux's got cut off, didn't it? But this is not tail, T-A-I-L. It's tale like a story, the Tale of Despereaux. When two words sound alike, but have two different meanings and are spelled differently, they're called homonyms. In this book, we have seen some homonyms. Tail and tail. This means something that comes off the end of an animal. And this means a story. You also saw night and night. This night is a warrior in a kingdom. This night is a time of day. And then we saw flour. Despereaux is sitting on top of a bag of flour in the pantry crying about his tail falling off or being cut off. And then there's also flower, F-L-W-E-R. And that's something that grows in yards, flowers. So those are homonyms, and I am writing the name of this story that contains a homonym. The Tale of Despereaux. And the author is Kate DiCamillo. She wrote the book. She's written lots of books.
Hi guys, it's me, Miss Hickson. This is a video to support this page.
Oops. Kate DiCamillo. On the character, let's look at Despereaux. He's our antagonist in the story. He's the title character. Despereaux. I want to look inside the book at some of the other books that Kate DiCamillo has written because they usually list those. At the front, it says novels by Kate DiCamillo. These are some other books that you can read. If you like this book, then a lot of times you seek out other books by that same author because you like their style. They write things that are interesting to you. Kate DiCamillo wrote, Because of Winn-Dixie, The Tiger Rising, The Tale of Despereaux, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, The Magician's Elephant, Flora and Ulysses, Raymie Nightingale, and Louisiana's Way Home. We read an excerpt from Flora and Ulysses in our textbook. Remember? Okay, so we're picking 3 different traits that Despereaux has, and then we're using these things to sort of describe those traits. So I picked that he is brave, that he's curious, and that he's clever. He's brave, curious, and clever. So I'm writing that down right now. Brave, curious, and clever. Okay, and so then it wants to show, you just show the actions that they did. So let's fill in everything for brave, and then everything for curious, and then everything for clever. For brave, he was brave because remember, he stood up to the Mouse Council, and that was on page 56 in chapter 10. He stood up to the Mouse Council. So I'm writing that down. He stood up to the Mouse Council. We were talking about plots and conflicts that come up in fiction. We talked about how sometimes in a story it's man versus man or a group of men, and that's when a character goes up against another person. And then we talked about the conflict man versus nature. That's when a character goes up against like a storm or something like that. And then we also talked about man versus society, and that's when the government or the society, a person in the story goes up against them. And we decided that a big part of Tale of Despereaux was man versus society, in this case Mouse versus Mouse Council, because the Mouse Council had rules and Despereaux was going against those rules. He was being defiant. He broke them. He was being brave. He stood up to the Mouse Council. There's also an internal struggle that happens in some books, and it's called man versus self, or character versus self. And that's when you have an internal struggle, like you're trying to not be scared or trying in some way like that. Okay, so he's brave, and the quote from the book is, he said, "No," said Despereaux, "I am not sorry. I will not renounce my actions. I love her. I love the princess." So when Despereaux was being sent to the dungeon for talking to the princess, they told him to renounce or repent for his actions. That means to say out loud and to other people that what he did was wrong, and he would not do it. He would not say that what he did was wrong. He said, and then this is the exact quote from the book, said, "No," said Despereaux, "I am not sorry, and I will not renounce my actions. I love her. I love the princess." And then on the bubble above that for thoughts, I put that the book says that Despereaux marveled at his own bravery. He admired his own defiance. After he said that, that's what he was thinking. He was admiring himself. He was like, wow, I'm really brave. Wow, I'm really defiant. I can't believe I just just did that, but he did it. So I'm going to write no, said Despero, ... I am not sorry. I will not renounce my actions. I love her. I love the princess. I had to make more room and write down like that. But I'm going to attach my other version that I'm copying from to my post so that you guys can see it, and I wrote smaller in that one. His thoughts. The book says that Despero marveled at his own bravery. He admired his own defiance. Okay, the next part is the character trait of being curious. These are internal character traits. External trait might be, for Miss Hickson, might be that she has long brown hair and brown eyes. That's external, that's on the outside. And the internal traits might be something you can't see on the outside, but she's nice. So these are internal traits for Despero. Okay, so for curious, I'm going to write, he followed the sound of the music. He followed the sound of the music. This is on page 27 in chapter 4. He has very big ears. He heard music, and he wanted to find out where that music was coming from, so he followed it. So he was curious. He followed the sound of the music. And thoughts. The sound of the king's music made Despero's soul grow large and light inside of him. So that's how he was feeling. That's why I put it down in thoughts. The music made him feel something, and it felt like his soul was growing large, and the light inside of him was growing large. That was his reaction to the music that he liked. And then the quote, what he exactly said was, it sounds like heaven and it smells like honey. So these two things are what motivated his curiosity. When he felt that way, that motivated his action of being curious and following where the sound was coming from, what was making that sound, everything like that. So I'm going to write for thoughts, the sound of the king's music made Despereaux, that's his French name, that's why it's spelled different. It's a weird sounding name. That's one part of the setting of this book. It's in another country called France. Oh, soul. The sound of the king's music made Despereaux's soul grow large and light inside of him. And then for the quote, the exact quote, what he said, and remember I'm using the punctuation mark of quotation marks around what he exactly said. He said, it sounds like heaven, period. It smells like honey, period. See my quotes. Quote at the beginning and quote at the end, and the words in between are what he said out loud. The last part is that his character trait is that he is clever. He was a smart mouse, and one of the things that proved he was a smart mouse was that he learned how to read. And so for actions, I put he learned to read. Period. And put that was on page 23 and 24 in chapter 3. He learned to read. And under thoughts, I put down what the book said that was happening in his head when he figured out how to read. And it says, Despereaux looked down at the book, the marks on the pages, the squiggles, and then I put ... and I put arrange themselves into words. Okay. I put ... dots in there because it was a really long paragraph describing what happened. And so I put ... to replace parts that I was skipping over, but it still makes sense. Despereaux looked down at the book, ... said some other stuff about that. And the marks on the pages, the squiggles, ... arrange themselves into words. So Despereaux looked down at the book. Remember, the other mice were trying to teach him how to be a mouse, and they were trying to tell him to eat the book. And he didn't want to eat it. He wanted to read it. The marks, when he started to read, that is what engaged his imagination. And that is why he fell in love with the princess, because he had an active imagination and he was romantic, because he had read stories or tales about knights and princesses arranged themselves into words. Period. And for the quote, I'm going to quote what he said when he read what he first read, the first thing that he read. And that was, once upon a time. So for quotes, I put once upon a time, whispered Despereaux. So I make a quotation mark. capital O-N-C-E, once upon a time, comma, in quotation mark, whispered Despero, period. Once upon a time, whispered Despero, period. So this is one way you can fill out your character consideration about Despero, or you can do another character from a book that you're reading on your own. Next, we're going to do the character consideration. Another character consideration, and we're going to do Despero again. This is the one I made about him. It got a little wrinkled. My husband was doing taxes on the computer in my office. That's where I'm at. This is my office. So for my name, I'm going to put Mrs. Hickson. For title, I'm going to put The Tale of Despero. You guys are never going to forget how to spell this weird word, Despero. Capital D, because it's his name. It's a proper noun. Nouns are persons, places, things, and ideas sometimes. Like happiness is a noun, even though you can't touch it. But it's kind of a thing to have happiness. Despero is a proper noun because it's a specific person, and that's his name. Author is Kate, also capitalized, first name and last name, Kate DeCamillo. And I made his face, made his ears big, but you can make them even bigger than that if you want to, because he had unusually large ears, even for a mouse. And then I made his nose. Just made a triangle with a black circle at the end. That's his nose right there. And you gotta make his whiskers too, huh? A little smiley face. And then his eyes in a minute. Oh, kind of messed up. It's okay. It's raining outside and thundering. There he is. That's Despero. He looks kind of old, but he's young in the story. Okay, so the questions on our graphic organizers is, what does the character look like? And I wrote complete sentences for all my answers, by the way. I didn't just write one word. I put, he is a little mouse with abnormally large ears, period. He is a little mouse with abnormally large ears. And for the middle part, his body, his torso, I put, well, the question is, what would you do if you were the character? And I put, if I was Despero, comma, comma is a pause, I would try to rescue the princess. Let's look at his other sleeve. What things does the character do? I put, he got sent to the dungeon for talking to humans. He got sent to the dungeon for talking to humans. That was against mouse law. They didn't want to be discovered, because then someone might come down and try to kill them. Okay, one of his legs says, do you like the character? Why or why not? I put, I like Despero because he is brave, curious, and clever. And those are the 3 character traits that we came up for him. And they're all good traits. Despero because he is brave, curious, and clever. And that's what I wrote. And then his other leg, the question says, something important about the character. I put that he learns to read, loves music, and Princess P. So he learns to read, comma, loves music, and Princess P. P-E-A. Like the vegetable. And you know what? There is a soup. Pea soup is really good if you've ever had it. Split pea soup. It's good. Okay. So the next one I'm going to do with you. One's the original and one is the one I just did. This was the original one I did. And then this is the one I just did with you guys. I don't know which one I'm going to post yet. Whichever ones look better to me. So this other next one I'm going to do is, it's called the main events. The main events. And it has a blank for your title, your author, the problem or conflict, events that led up to a resolution, some sort of resolution for the problem or conflict. So once again, the title is The Tale of Despero. I'll put your name first, Mrs. Hickson. And then write the tale, all capitalized. We capitalize the name of books, the title of books. Tale of Despero. author Kate, capital K-A-T-E, DiCamillo. And the way she spells her name is capital D, lowercase I, capital C, M-I-L-L-O. Kate DiCamillo. And the problem that I picked was that Miggery Sal, wants to be a princess, and that is her conflict or her problem. She wants to be a princess. So for the problem, I put Mig wants to be a princess. I'm going to write all the events that led up to Mig wanting to be a princess. The first event was Mig's father sold Mig to his brother for, remember, a red cloak, a hen, and some cigarettes. And that's what he did. So for the first event, I am writing Mig's father sold Mig. Mig's, put apostrophe S. Whose father is it? Mig's. That shows the possession. Whose father? Mig's father. Sold Mig to his brother. For a red cloak, a hen, and some cigarettes. When we read this part, some of you guys recognized the foreshadowing in this part, because there was a prisoner down in the dungeon and he had a red cloak. And so a lot of y'all were like, oh, that's Mig's dad, when we talked about what Mig's dad sold her for. And you guys made an inference. Well, inference is when the story doesn't actually say something, but you kind of figure something out. So it's not a fact that's stated. And in the end, it could come to be that, no, that's not Mig's dad. You know, just some other dude happened to have a red cloak that was a prisoner down in a dungeon. But we're pretty sure it seems too coincidental that he had a red cloak. So we made an inference, but it's not a fact stated. The next event that happened is one day out in the field, Mig saw the royal family riding through. The princess waved at Mig from her horse. I remember we drew this part of the story, and a lot of you guys drew the princess on top of a horse. One day out in a field, Mig saw the royal family. We draw pictures of our stories sometimes because we're visualizing the story in our head. And it's important to do when you read. One day out in a field, Mig saw the royal family riding through. They were riding through the field. They're probably on their way back to the palace, but that's an inference. It doesn't say that. And it says the princess waved at Mig from her horse. That's what royalty does. They wave to the people that they rule over. The princess waved at Mig from her horse. Mig was actually mesmerized by the princess when she saw her. And she wanted to wave back, and she tried, but I don't think the princess saw her. So she was kind of upset because she wanted the princess to see her. The next event that I wrote down was that Meg's uncle was cruel to her. It's important to note that, because part of the reason why Meg wants to be a princess is because she's unhappy, and so she wants a different life. Meg's uncle was cruel to her. He said mean things to her that weren't very nice, and he hit her, and he made her work all the time as a slave. Meg's uncle was cruel to her. Event 4. When a soldier came to the uncle's house to tell him that the kingdom had outlawed soup, he found Meg and saved her. When a soldier came to the uncle's house to tell him that the kingdom had outlawed, that means banned, made it illegal, outlawed soup, comma, he found Meg and saved her. We know why the soup was outlawed. Remember, Rescuro fell into the queen's soup, and it shocked her, and it killed her. And so the king was very upset, and so he outlawed soup. The soldier, was going door to door telling people, hey, there's a new decree from the king, no soup. You can't have soup. Well, the uncle was being defiant, and he said some things, and he was like, and then I have my girl here, and the soldier was like, your girl? You mean you own her? And he was like, yeah, I bought her. I own her. And he was like, that's not legal. You can't do that. And so he took Meg and he took her to the castle for her to work. So the next event is I put that Meg was put to work in the castle where she met the princess again. So she wasn't a slave in the castle. She had a job and she was paid. But it was still a life that she didn't really like because it was hard work, and people there were mean too. They were not the nicest of people. Cook was mean to her. It was mostly Cook, and, criticized her a lot for not being good at her job. And there's more to the story. Meg was kind of not that smart to begin with, and her ears got punched a lot by her uncle to the point where she couldn't hear very well. So a lot of times when they're telling her what to do, she was just like, I don't understand, and I can't hear you. And so they were getting mad at her and saying, Meg, you need to do your job. And she was just like, I'm doing the best I can. I don't really know what you're saying. And so that's what happened to her. But I'm just writing, Meg was put to work in the castle where she, who remembers what part of speech the word she is? It's not a noun, it's a pronoun. That's a short word that takes the place of a noun. So the noun is Meg, proper noun, and the word that takes the place of the word Meg is the word she. she met the princess again, where she met the princess again. So again, she had a chance to glimpse into the life of a princess. And again, she just thought, wow, that's the life I want. I want to be a princess. She was desperate to be a princess. And what did Roscuro say when he was learning how to be evil, the rat? He said once he learns someone's desperate desires, then he can control them and get them to do things and make them suffer. And so the next event was that while delivering a tray of food to the jailer who lives down in the dungeon, Mig meets Roscuro, the evil rat, who promises to make her dreams come true. So he finds out that she wants to be a princess because she was singing about it. And he was like, ooh, she wants to be a princess. Well, I'm going to do some stuff to manipulate her. That means control her by saying lies to her. And he's going to get her to do what he wants. And he's going to make her suffer and other people suffer for his own selfish desires. Okay, so event 6, while delivering a tray of food to the jailer. Gregory was his name. He lived down there in the dungeon. Well, and I put that jailer who lives down in the dungeon. Mig calls them the deep downs. Down in the dungeon, comma, Mig meets Roscuro the rat. Rats are also forbidden in the kingdom, but they hide in the dungeon. He promises to make her dream come true. Okay, so the last part is your resolution. That means how it all turned out. For this problem or conflict, Mick wants to be a princess. We don't really know how it's going to turn out yet in our reading. So I put some questions for that blank. For resolution, I put, will her dream come true? Question mark. Will her dream come true? Question mark. Will Mig become a princess by swapping places with Princess P? You know, if there's any parts of this book that you want to reread, you can go to YouTube and look up The Tale of Despereaux and put in the chapters that you want to see, and there are videos of teachers reading that book. There's also a movie that you can watch. A lot of times when a film is adapted from a book, they don't follow everything in the book, because when they make a movie, they change things because it's a different format, and so they have to make it work as a movie. So a lot of times people like to read a book first and then watch the movie and see what things they changed. I wrote right here, will her dream come true? Will Meg become a princess by swapping places with P? And then I answered my own question under that, and I put not if Despero, who we remember loves Princess P, not if Despero can stop her. Well, I should put an exclamation on the end of that, exclamation point. Not if Despero can stop her, exclamation point. So that is one way you can fill out these 3 graphic organizers that are in your packs, and it's how they relate to this story. But you can read your own book, and you can do them if you want to. You can read your own book and you can do your own version of this. I hope you enjoyed it.